Hello to all who are watching a new episode of the Gruyter's Book Talk. My name is Stefan Giesen. I'm the Editorial Director for Business and Economics books at the Gruyter. Today we want to talk about oligarchs. To be precise, about the book The Oligarchs Grip, Fusing Wealth and Power, which will be published on November the 6th, 2023. Both authors are my guests today. This is David Lingelbach on the one hand, and on the other, Valentina Rodríguez Guerra. David is professor for entrepreneurship at Merrick School of Business at the University of Baltimore. Valentina is an author, oligarch, researcher, graduate student in business administration at Universidad Nacional de Colombia. A warm welcome from my side, both of you. Hello, David. Hello,
Hi.
Valentina.
Hi, Stefan.
Hi.
You must be excited when your own book is about to be published. No?
Yeah.
It's only 6 days, and then your book is available worldwide.
Yes, we're feeling very excited and eager to get our message and our thoughts out there to the global academic, business, and political communities.
Okay. Oligarchs are a very exciting topic. But why did you deal with oligarchs? What was your motivation to write a book about oligarchs?
Oh, great question, Stefan. I think Valentina and I will just kind of go back and forth on this. So, I first met oligarchs back in the 1990s when I was living and working in post-communist Russia. And I was working there as a business person. And so for me, learning about oligarchs was kind of a practical issue. How do I make money or avoid losing money working with them? How did I keep my staff safe? Things like that. Then later, when I became an academic, I noticed that there amazingly was a big gap in our research knowledge about these actors. And so that really struck me because they've become sort of a grand global challenge for us, almost comparable in some ways to climate change or AI. So that was my motivation.
Well,
And your motivation, Valentina?
in my case, I think maybe more like in an education way, because when you start to learn about the history of oligarchy in Colombia, and that was like my beginning with Colombia, you start to understand the ways in which it affected society here, and it is a good point to start. Then, like you try to understand how it affects everything in your life, like politics, social, everything. For example, today is election day, and we see that every day. So that was my starting point.
Okay. And my next question is, why are oligarchs so important? Why are you researching on this topic?
Yeah, well, Stefan, as you know, oligarchs increasingly are dominating our world. There's 23 of them right now who are serving as heads of state or government in some pretty big economies around the world, like Russia, the UK, Saudi Arabia, and Nigeria. And what's interesting is that they really span the political and economic spectra. They are successful in democracies and in autocracies as well. They are able to make money both in free markets and ones that are not so free. And at the same time, they're masters of uncertainty. We're facing this increasingly uncertain global economic and political environment. And these are some of the few actors out there that actually know how to exploit that. So that's one piece of it.
Okay. Really good.
Valentina?
Sorry.
I think they're shaping the ways we think and act and buy and vote through mechanisms like social media, for example, X, or even in Google. And maybe talk about how they are hardly discussed in business schools, even though many business people are likely to interact with or otherwise be influenced by oligarchs, sometimes in their own career.
Wow, really interesting. to be honest, when I think of oligarchs, the Russian oligarchs immediately comes to my mind, who have become very rich through corruption and power in the post-Soviet area. But what types of oligarchs exist, and what are their characteristics?
Yeah, Stefan, I think your perspective on them is similar to most people's, and certainly is the perspective I initially had. But as researchers, what Valentina and I found is that oligarchs are both a global and a historical phenomenon. They go back as far as ancient Greece, China, and Egypt, and I think that we broadly group them into two types: business and political in nature. Business oligarchs are ones that acquire wealth first and then use that wealth to gain power, whereas political oligarchs move the other way. They acquire power first and then move from there to wealth. And Valentina, you could talk a little bit about some of their other characteristics, I think.
The power, they have like three main types. Decision-making oligarchs hold some kind of office, such as president or prime minister. Agenda-setting oligarchs work behind the scenes, funding candidates and think tanks. And ideological oligarchs are probably the most powerful of all. They shape how we think and how we act.
Okay, really interesting. As I said, oligarchs, in my mind, is always old white men who are very rich, have maybe their big mansions and their own yachts. But are there also female oligarchs? And if so, how they look like? Yeah? What is their characteristics?
Valentina, this one's for you.
Well, we do focus on two female oligarchs in our book: Isabel dos Santos from Angola and Yulia Tymoshenko from Ukraine. And there are a few others, such as Jingluk Shinawatra from Thailand. And it's hard to generalize from so few data points, but female oligarchs seems to be less wealthy and powerful than their male counterparts. That may change. More women become billionaires and achieve decision-making positions of power.
Okay, also they are not so rich like the men's, but they are maybe become to getting richer and more powerful. Okay.
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet, but maybe in the near future can be okay. Yeah. With oligarchs, at some points one comes to the questions: are oligarchs bad, harmful to the country or to our society? And if so, what can be done to prevent them, and how we can structure our systems can be changed that oligarchs do not emerge? Do you have any ideas from your book that you can tell us?
Oh, we have lots to say on this topic. So, Stefan, Valentina and I, we really try to stay independent and objective as researchers on oligarchs. And indeed, one of the reasons we wrote the book is that we felt that this topic had become too rhetorical and political in a way. And we wanted to really take a more dispassionate view on oligarchs, which are obviously, consequential and controversial people. I'll take the good side and I'll let Valentina deal with the bad side of oligarchs. So believe it or not, there are some oligarchs that are actually relatively ethical. I mean, in our book, we talk about Al Gore, the climate change activist, and Cyril Ramaphosa, who played a really important role in the ending of apartheid in South Africa. So these are examples of oligarchs that have done good things for their societies and for the world. And historically, there are oligarchs like, for example, Herbert Hoover, former American president, who, before he was president, actually saved, at least 10 million lives at the end of the First World War. Or going back further in time, there's people like Cosimo de' Medici, who funded, a pretty large part of the Italian Renaissance. So there's some good folks, but, Valentina, why don't you tell everybody about the bad ones?
I would say that some oligarchs have clearly done enormous harm to their societies and others. Take Putin, for example, or Leopold II of Belgium, and the number of deaths they both have caused. Then there are the garden variety of bad oligarchs who are corrupt or authoritarian. In ancient Greece, oligarchs were capable of regulating themselves, and that no longer seems viable. Near term, our instruments for reducing the harm, they cause include legal actions, sanctions, policies to reduce corruption, improve the competition, or even de-oligarchize and greater the transparency. But while some of these instruments might make us feel good, we are less certain that they will decisively contain oligarchs, let alone defeat them. Longer term, reducing wealth inequality may address one driver of oligarch growth, but we're not as optimistic as Piketty is about this. We think that oligarchs are a durable feature of human society.
Okay, and this more the majority are the bad oligarchs instead of the positive examples, huh? Or do you want to say that we cannot say that there's also that is 50-50 in the end. Also my question is it the majority are more the bad side or the bad oligarchs, or do we have a kind of 50-50 percentage good and negative examples here?
I mean, my sense, and I'd be curious to see what Valentina thinks about this, is that they're probably more on average bad than good. But, when we get into these sort of value judgments, Stefan, I mean, we have to recognize that these are culturally bound judgments that we're making, and that, how oligarchs are seen in societies around the world varies enormously. And frankly, in some settings, perhaps oligarchs are just taken as a given now. They're not seen as being bad or good. They're just, a fact of life.
Okay, fact of life. Okay, really interesting. Yeah. In your book, you examine oligarchs worldwide, from Najib Bukele, Isabel dos Santos, you mentioned her, to Vladimir Putin. What do you think is can I say that exacting character or person? What do you think? Is there anyone who's maybe a really interesting guy, and you said, okay, that's maybe also the reason why I wrote this book? David, you're first, maybe.
Oh yeah, this is such a great question. It really is making Valentina and I think quite a lot. So, I was fortunate enough to actually have worked with a couple of oligarchs, most notably Putin and Mikhail Friedman, both of whom are our focus case studies in the book. And Putin, of course, is pretty well known now, so I won't say much more about him. But I have to say, I still have a bit of a sneaking admiration for Friedman, who's really has taken it on the chin recently with the sanctions as a result of the war in Ukraine. He's made mistakes. His net worth is not what it once was, but he kind of reminds me of that guy at a party that's sort of standing in the corner of the room, really not talking to anybody, but watching everything. And I really find that kind of interesting. I mean, maybe that says more about me as a person, and a researcher than anything, but I find him to be kind of interesting. So anyway, I'll stop there. Valentina, I'm sure, has got a totally different take on this question.
Well, there are some oligarchs that are a little too exciting for me. For example, my university has a famous alumnus who is one of my country's best-known oligarchs. David and I decided not to focus on him in the book for various reasons.
Mhm.
But I think I'm still in the line of picking like an oligarch who's who lives in Latin America, because like for me means something. And that would probably be Nayib Bukele, because he's a really controversial figure who has been who I will describe like an exciting oligarch, because he has like a really unconventional approach to politics and like authoritarian tendencies. And it probably could be for his rise to the power, like the story he has and to start his political career. But I think I will stay with the controversial policies, starting in the pandemic, like how he handled it, and now how he's handling the like the crime and like controlling the country.
Yeah, it was really interesting character. I read a lot of articles of him. Yeah, but nevertheless, David, we met us in Baltimore this in April, I think. And I know that you both traveled a lot for research for the book, met oligarchs yourself, you mentioned that, or visited informants. What happened there? Is there any kind of interesting and exciting anecdote? I know you, David, now we have maybe a 1 hour kind of discussion what happens and so on, what the experience so far, but maybe I will start with Valentina. Do you have any kind of interesting, exciting anecdote that you tell us about when you did the kind of field study? Yeah.
Well, on our research trip, we met an oligarch. He's not featured in the book, but we did it in a restaurant. He was surrounded with his security, like while we talked and warned us about that afterward that we were being like followed and tracked by the country's intelligence service. And it was funny because when we were talking, we have to do it in a place with loud music, and it was hard to listen to him, and it was like a completely different experience. And it's like it's the kind of place where people get disappear regularity to this day.
Wow.
So we were both nervous until we left. We still
I can imagine that. Yeah.
we still have to communicate with this informant through very secure means. And it all sounds a bit like James Bond kind of stuff, but like it really illustrates why oligarchs remain so challenging to study.
And David,
yeah, I mean, Valentina's told that story beautifully. This was the first oligarch that Valentina had actually met, face to face. And, as researchers, I mean, we're very strong in sort of doing field work. It's very important for us studying a phenomenon like this to really be close to these people. And I said to Valentina, I said, look, it'll be fine. We'll be safe. But I want you to be close to this person because I want to see how you react to him, how he reacts to you. I mean, this is important sort of tacit data that one gathers as researchers that makes a real difference in understanding the phenomenon. You can't just study it through documents or, counting the number of times they tweet. You really have to get close to these people. And I think experiences like that one, and we've had others, really give us a lot more confidence about the findings of the book. I think that we've come away from the book feeling like we really have advanced knowledge about this phenomenon quite significantly.
Okay. And can you be neutral when you met oligarch in person? Also, I know the research is a kind of, you said, okay, I'm not subjective. I want to do it in a kind of academic research style. And now you met the oligarchs. Is it different then when you write about oligarchs and you met them? Then it's maybe your perspective are kind of different. compare if you only do research by reading books or daily newspapers and so on.
It does, and of course I've been dealing with these people for a very long time, and I think that for the two of us, and one of the best things we got out of this particular encounter, Stefan, with this particular oligarch, was that we actually had him read the book before we sent it to you.
Okay.
And we said, look, does this make sense to you, or are we completely missing it? And I think we write about this at the end of the book a little bit. You know, one of the validators for us was him sort of reading, 300 plus pages of text and saying, yeah, you basically understand how people like me think and act and operate in the world. And that kind of made it worthwhile.
Okay. Well, really interesting that you sent all the manuscript to all the guys, and he said, "Oh, that's me. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah. It's not perfect. It's not perfect, but it's
perfect. It's very my person.
Yeah, I may not like it, but one of the things about this particular person is that my assessment and our assessment was that he was capable of being self-reflective. Not all oligarchs are that way, and so he was an unusual opportunity to kind of, get another way to kind of, see that what we were writing made sense to people that hopefully will see a little bit of themselves in this book.
Hopefully, yeah. Yeah, we had a very interesting discussion, and I enjoyed very much. And I think we could have this gone forever in my eyes, because here are really interesting authors. You can tell us a lot about oligarchs, but all the good things come to an end at some point, and this is now sorry.
Yeah.
But many thanks for your time, and I really appreciate it. And as a reminder before you say some kind of words, the Oligarchs Grip, Fusing Wealth and Power comes out on November the 6th this year. Yeah. Then, as I said, many thanks for your time. It was a really interesting discussion, David and Valentina. And yeah, have a nice day.
Okay, Stefan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stefan.